Call this meeting to order. Roll call. Council at Large Cummins.
Yes.
At Large Spear.
Here.
Council Ward number 1 Leeper.
Here.
Ward number 2 Anderson.
Here.
Ward number 3 McNeil.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
To the agenda approval, there was one slight change that on new business number 2, the pay app number 4 needs to be paid to Sheets Construction and not HBK Engineering. So, oh, and there was an updated agenda that had been posted. And Melissa, what was the update?
That was to add a discussion and possible motion concerning the one app of the Heartland.
Underneath the city manager's
city
report.
manager.
Yep. Alright, so with those 2 changes, are there any other changes that need to be made? Seeing there is none, is there a motion for approval?
I'll move. Second.
Cummins with the first and Spear with the second.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear.
Yes.
Alright, so with that approved, we'll move on to the communications, and there is someone who asked to be put on the agenda. Her name is Michelle McGuire, so she is currently here. Alright, just make your way to the podium then.
Okay, well, hi everyone. My name is Michelle McGuire. I sent all the council members an email about 2 weeks ago regarding this, so some of it might be the same stuff. So I'm currently pursuing a house on West 8th Street, and I have 4 rescue hens, so I'd like to I propose to put an ordinance in place to allow hens within Tipton city limits, so that I can join the community and so that other people can enjoy chickens as well. I truly believe that the addition of chickens would only have positive effects on the community. I personally, if I bought the house that I'm looking at, would have a large lot and only one neighbor, but even if that wasn't so, a lot of the surrounding larger cities where your neighbors are like right on top of you, have allowed chickens for quite some time now, such as Iowa City, North Liberty, Davenport, Anamosa, and Cedar Rapids. Chickens make great companion animals, and they are fun, friendly, and provide educational value for children about where food like eggs come from, and just more learning opportunities about other species. Everyone that I talked to, I did get signatures from all of my neighbors saying that they would be just fine with me having them, and all of them only had good things to say. It was all positive feedback. Most of them thought that chickens were already allowed, or they didn't know that they weren't allowed, and a lot of them were excited and was saying that they wanted to come over and meet them if I moved in. So all positive feedback so far. I do believe that there should be rules in place, obviously, under the ordinance. The most important ones would probably to have a well-maintained coop, as well as having them enclosed or fenced in on the owner's property to keep them safe, as well as keep them from roaming around the neighborhood, which would not be good. And those are some of the common ones that some of the other larger cities had in their ordinance. I think that's all I really had to say. I guess I don't know how this really works. I've never tried to get an ordinance put in place. But any questions or any concerns that I could talk about or answer to help with getting this passed?
This is how it starts.
Okay.
So thank you for
Yeah,
coming
of course.
to speak to us,
Yeah.
and thank you for looking at Tipton too for your possible future
It's
home.
a beautiful town. I lived in Iowa City for a while. My sister lives close to here, so I'd love to get back in the area. So
So you said some of the. Do you have any specific ordinances from other towns.
No, I didn't print any of them out. They're all very easily accessed online. But yeah, most of them have about the same, rules under them, but most of them all contain the well-maintained coop and the having them enclosed. Those are the big ones. As well as some of them have like a small fee. I think another big thing is, only allowing like a smaller flock. Usually it's like 4 to 8 chickens or something, because you don't want, no one really needs more than that unless they're doing some, I don't know, trying to sell eggs or something, but, yeah, are there any other questions, or?
Have you, well, first, what's a rescue chicken?
Oh, I rescued mine from a sanctuary. Like, I don't eat their eggs or anything, I just have them as companion animals, like my cat, you know? But that, even if you just had them as, hens to have eggs, they're usually healthier than store-bought eggs, and they're good, fun to have around, I guess.
Have you had chickens within one of the cities you mentioned where you were under that kind of ordinance?
No, I personally have not. I live out in the country currently, and so I don't have there's no rules. But the people that I have talked to, like in Iowa City, one of my neighbors had chickens, and you never would have even known they had chickens unless they told you, because they're quiet and a lot quieter than dogs and stuff. But
This would be a pretty big decision, This would be, if you decide to proceed, would be one of those things where maybe before you do the first reading, you might want to consider doing a public hearing on the idea. But I guess the first thing, and you don't have to react tonight. If you want to think about what you want to do, and I could put it on the next agenda, and then you could use that item to decide now is not the time, or you could use it to decide that we should go forward in some way.
That's what I would propose. I am not prepared to make a decision tonight. The little bit of research that I did, and I did look into Iowa City since you specifically mentioned that one, is it was 4 hens maximum. There were definite laws on how to maintain their cage. It even went, it even went so far as to say, what kind of materials it had to be made out of and where it had to be placed. It could be, had to be so far away from your neighbor's lot line. All of the neighbors had to give approval, that had to say, so if anybody on an adjacent lot said no, you were not able to have that hen, they could not sell their eggs. Trying to remember some of the big things. There were a few other things as well, but there were definitely some big factors. Obviously no roosters. Had to maintain a clean cage. There were inspection had to be done prior to putting the hens in place, and then an inspection yearly, or more if somebody complained.
And who would do those inspections, Abby?
You know what? I don't recall if it said. I would have to look at that again. I did save the information that I have, so I'd be happy to share it with you. I guess in a small town like this, my thought is that the inspections would probably have to be done by your local, and then you would have to really be diligent on that to make sure, because the minute you have somebody that maybe doesn't abide by the rules, it's gonna be an issue.
And that's always a concern for me, is that my idea of what a clean cage and a nice coop would look like could be
That's why it
certainly
has to
different.
definitely be.
I think a lot of them that I saw well-maintained coop, I mean, yeah, like you said, it can vary greatly. But a lot of it was like, it's attracting like flies or something, which, I mean, I've never seen that, so, and I mean, at rescues and stuff, I've never seen that, so it must be pretty bad, but, I mean, just, you know, like if your neighbors are obviously smelling something, which
Right.
I feel, I mean, you'd have to work at it to make it that unkempt, but.
I noticed a couple of them mentioned also to make sure that it was maintained really well because of rodents. So I'm assuming that must draw
So-
rodents in there as well.
So, like, if, I mean, you just have to have good practices, like keeping, it's just like with any type of food for a dog or anything, if you're keeping it outside, like, you should have it in a metal bin or something.
So definitely something I think that we need to give more thought to than just saying yay or nay
Right.
right now.
I would agree with that. And I think chickens would be a whole lot quieter than the 16 dogs that are on our block. I've never heard a chicken bark.
You heard it out there.
This is my fourth year as mayor, and you are the second one to bring it to our attention, so it should be something that we all give it a few thoughts to, so.
Okay, great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Alright, so, Ms. McGuire was the only one that is scheduled, so this will be unscheduled, if there's anybody who would like to address the council. And you can say
I'll
there.
just say this real
Yeah,
quick. Dean, I think you're the only one that might remember this, and Shirley would also. When you met at City Hall back then, didn't this come up
Yes,
before?
this is the third time.
Yes,
so not
and
there.
there were lots of
Mhm.
objections, lots, and it just went down, didn't it?
Yeah, I was the only supporter.
Huh?
I was the only supporter.
Do you remember what the main objection was?
I think all the things that have been mentioned,
The smell, the sound.
smell, rodents.
Controlling it.
I seem to remember there were quite a few people that spoke against it and said, no, we don't want this.
We raised chickens when I was a kid, and there is no animal stinks any worse than a chicken unless it's hogs, and you don't have hogs in town. But,
Poor
if
chickens.
where we live, if the wind is blowing out of the south, we smell it in our house. And, you don't forget that
I'd
smell.
be curious how many were in favor at that time.
Yeah.
Dean.
Well, no, she means
I
in the
mean,
general
just like
public.
the public, was
Yeah.
there a
There were some, yes.
a good support
There was
for it?
support for it.
But there was also a lot of negatives.
Mhm.
Yeah,
if I
yeah,
remember.
it was probably even up.
Just don't make next
We'll say no.
There's no one else who wants to address? Oh, sorry, yeah, definitely. Sorry, could you state your name and address?
Joanne Aronson at 1310 North Avenue in Tipton, Iowa. Okay, on Christmas evening, I was having a hard time breathing all day, and I finally decided I needed to go to the hospital. So we called for an ambulance, and no one in Tipton couldn't come to pick anybody up. They couldn't get a hold of anyone. So they came from all the way up at, trying to think of the town now. Clarence, yeah. And I had no problems with them at all. And then I was there for like 8 days in the hospital, came back home like 2 more days, and I had to go back to the hospital. Well, the Tipton ambulance came, and I have never had a ride like that in my life. They had no air in the, when I laid down the thing, it was like you were laying on completely just, what would I say, what would I call it, like metal. And so I called somebody, I don't know who it was, and I told them about it. And they said, well, we have heavier people in Tipton, and they wanna lay on that. I said, I don't think so. But there was these orange things, and out in Clarence, I had no problem laying down. In Tipton, they were not blowed up or anything. It's like something you blow up. And it was horrible, let me tell you. The next time I had him take me, I said, I am not going in the ambulance because and the girl didn't even know how to put a CPAP on. She was a young girl, don't know her name, never asked. And so we had to wait all the way till we got to Mount Vernon to have a guy come in, an older gentleman, got on, and he put the CPAP on. And I told the girl, hell, I wear one at nighttime, I can put it on. And she said, no, we can't let you do that. And she did not know what she was doing. And I think it's very sad that this Tipton cannot get enough people that are interested like they used to. What is going on in this town of Tipton that this younger generation doesn't want to be involved in anything? I don't know. I don't even know who I talked to at City Hall, but I talked to someone. Oh, they said, well, heavier people like that. They do not like that. Yeah, if you were heavier, it would really hurt. And I can't understand why that girl could not put a CPAP on.
Nah, I don't either. I don't have more.
I don't
Sorry
know
for your
either, and I don't
experience.
know who I talked to, but that is exactly what they told me. And I said, I'll never ride in their ambulance again. I'll just tell them to come from Clarence.
What was the person you talked to, a man or a woman?
I talked to a man.
Okay. I think I talked to you, I kind of remember the CPAP thing, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether the beds in the ambulances are geared for one weight of somebody or another, so I think I handed it off to Brad and asked him to follow up with you. But
Nobody else did, no one did.
do you remember?
Yeah, I don't know if it'd be appropriate for me to go into patient questions though, but Clarence's cot's 10 years newer than ours, and it's a lot more comfortable than ours are. Ours was,
Well, why can't you get some new of the blow-up mattresses which you have in there?
I think that this is truly just a question of a difference of a 10-year cot, truly.
A difference of what?
A brand new cot.
Why can't you get that? I mean,
They're $18,000.
how many people are gonna be hurt? I mean, I about died going up there, I tell you. Every bump they hit, and that was terrible. I was about ready to set up.
What did you say they cost?
$18,000.
Well, get it on, blow the damn thing up.
We're trying to update everything. Since Mr. Ratliff has taken over, we've been able to update a lot of everything that's
Yeah.
in those ambulances.
But I mean, who does he go to get money?
They'll say something.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, then I think you guys ought to all get together and start thinking about getting those up, because it is the worst ride I've ever had in my life. And I just couldn't believe that nobody knew what the hell they were doing. I mean, that really, I'm serious. And when I got to the hospital, I tell you, I was about ready to get up on my own and get out of there if I could. I was about ready to get up on my own and get out of there. And it was not their fault at all,
Mm-hmm.
But, Clarence, and I know that they said they were newer, but it doesn't make any difference. You can't ride on metal. Plain metal, like the metal goes like this.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing to support you, and then give me an answer like that for heavier people. I don't go for that. I know I'm not that thin, but I know there's people that are heavier than me, and they would hate that. So I'd like for someone to work on that.
What, I think you mentioned this happened last December.
Yes.
What happened to cause you to come in tonight to the council meeting? Did something happen? Something
No.
else?
No, I just came in because I just thought about it. Maybe I better do something about this
Okay.
and say something, because it doesn't seem like maybe it's gonna be getting any better, and they can't get people involved to train to do that. That young girl did not know anything that she was doing, I'm not kidding you. Then you have to go all the way, she wouldn't let me put it on, she said, well, I can't let you put it on. And then have to go all the way to, Mount Vernon to get some older gentleman to get in there to put it on. I mean, I felt sorry for her because she didn't know anything. She knew how to put the oxygen on, but that was it.
I'd like to add to that too. I took an ambulance ride last year in June. And that cot was the most uncomfortable thing I'd ever ridden on. That was the one difficult ride. So, but I think it's on plans on the future, isn't it, Brad? Okay.
It's,
Be in budget
still
then.
paying on the wall. Well, I think, now, correct me if I get this wrong, because I'm just trying to remember. We're paying a debt on the current ambulance, the newest ambulance. And we were looking at the budget, can the ambulance service get by if you're paying for 2 ambulances at the same time? That's a tough thing to get to work in the budget. And if people want round-the-clock coverage, that's another thing that has to be afforded. I mean, there's a cost of doing these things. And so somewhere in the middle, the council tries to figure out what the best combinations of things might be. But it is difficult to try to pay for 2 ambulances at the same time.
Well,
And that's just strictly
and
out
how
of
long
the
do you
city.
think it would take them to buy 2 ambulance?
Well, when does the current one drop off?
It's got a significant number of years. I think it was purchased in 2015. Is that around right? It's got a ways to go. How much did you think, over 200,000 for a new one?
Oh, for a new one, 242.
No funds from the county at all.
And, once again, you have to tell me too, I think our ambulance budget is right around 400,000. No, it's less than that. 350, and I believe Monticello has a round the clock, and theirs is nearly 900,000.
I thought it was somewhere around 8.
So that's the kind of tug of war that our council is in right now, to try and plug these holes that we are finding many of, while still maintaining our current property taxes and all those levies as well.
Well, couldn't you possibly get new, of the blow-up thing to the orange, I don't know, the orange, for people just for right now until they get the new ones?
I have no idea, honestly. That'd be a question for Brad and Melissa for the budgetary restraints. So, but that's obviously not something we can decide tonight either, but it'd be just something they can take under advisement and let us know if their numbers all line up and we can approve those purchases. So once again, I apologize for your experiences, and please, I don't use the word trust us, but know that we are trying to work through all this, all those shortfalls in volunteerism as well. Unfortunately, it's really easy to say it's happening across the country, but it is. I don't characterize it as this generation, but it's not just our ambulance service that is finding these holes now that have to be filled by paid staff. And we're trying to do our best to get to the level of service that you expect. So, anyone else have any questions for Joanne?
I'm sorry.
No questions, I just want to apologize to you.
Hopefully we won't have to do that not only just to you, but anybody else.
I just said I don't have questions, I just want to apologize for your experience.
Oh, it was horrible, kid. Woo. I said, I'll never call Tipton ambulance ever again. I'll call for them up there. I will, because I'm not gonna ride on metal. It hurt. I mean, it really, really hurt.
Well, thank you for coming to share your story, because it helps us all put faces to those issues as well.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming. Alright. Anyone else address the city council? Can you make your way, or?
I don't, I'm not.
Oh, yeah, no worries. Yeah, just make your way to the podium and then
Okay.
state your name and address.
And what can we basically talk about?
So whatever,
All right,
color of the sky.
I mean, I really don't know.
Rain
Uh,
sky, anything?
Hi, Dan Klein, 1107 Parkview Drive, here in Tipton. So, my concern is, what I keep reading in the paper is this city is just bleeding money. I mean, I came in here and I looked, we need approval for this aquatic center for this. You know,
Yeah.
we've got, a new football field, new track field, all this renovations and stuff like this, the airport, you know. I thought we voted down the airport 2 years ago, or whatever. All I know is the way I feel as a taxpayer, because my taxes went up. Don't know who else in this town, the city, or in this room, if their taxes went up, but mine went up. From what I see is, I came to Tipton, I retired, I came to Tipton, and I thought, you know, this would be a nice place to go. And all I hear is, there's bickering all over this town between certain parties and everything like that. And this town is really, literally bleeding money. And you know, it's like, how much more are you guys gonna keep bleeding the taxpayers in this city? You know, I can understand why we need a new ambulance. I've had one close call with the ambulance service in this town. I keep telling my neighbors, if I go down in my yard, I don't want anybody to call for an ambulance. I want to be left alone for an hour and a half until I'm good and dead. I just don't trust the ambulance service around here either. And I'm a retired RN, you know, but, you know, we gotta quit bleeding money around here. And we gotta quit raising taxes. And we've got to start, you guys have really got to start buckling down. I mean, you guys are elected officials. And that's my gripe.
The football field is a school project, not a
Right.
city project. So that's all school money.
Mm-hmm.
The aquatic center is repairing damages that were done during construction.
And you can't go back on whoever
We
constructed
did,
this?
we had a settlement of nearly $700,000 to pay for all of those.
Okay, and that's gonna cover that?
Nearly. And then, we had another donation gifted to us to help cover even more of that, and we're currently preparing a lot for sale that the city was gifted to help cover the added expenses as well.
Okay. Because, I mean, I see a lot of infrastructure that really need, I mean, the streets are atrocious.
We got like 6 blocks this year,
Yeah.
a mile last year, new sewer this last
Yeah.
year.
But I mean, these are just local streets, you know, you drive around and, you know, they weren't put in probably properly back when they were first put in, so now, you know, now we have to eat that, you know. And then the sewer, you know,
And
I feel sorry for the people that don't have a good sewer system around here.
And with the property taxes, the assessor, who is a county office,
Mhm.
they just completed their, I think it's like every 10 years, they
Yeah,
have to go through
yeah,
and
'cause-
reassess.
Yeah.
So that wasn't the city.
And I mean, I have a new home, I mean, it's only 5 years old, so I expect I'm gonna be paying out, you know, for several years, you know, but, you know, I'm just concerned that
Mhm.
we really you know, we've got to find where we can tighten up and where we don't need extravaganzas in this city, you know, you need, and I can understand the poor ambulance service because you need qualified, certified people to run that place. I mean, I was on one ambulance service, I mean, I had to be ACLS certified, and you know, which I have been in the past, but I've let that all lapse since I've retired, you know, so. And after 40-some odd years, I really don't want to go back and take care of people anymore. So.
Unfortunately, our other huge expense that we're gonna have is the sewer plant, and that's
Yeah.
being driven by the DNR.
Right, and I understand that, you know, you need that,
Mhm.
you know, you need that, and then, yeah, that's about it. I mean, you know,
Awesome.
if I have any more gripes, I'm gonna come in though and let you know.
Definitely. Definitely do. That's what we're here.
Mr. Klein,
Yeah.
I just have one comment, because
Yeah.
I think everyone in here understands what you're saying
Yeah.
in the last few years.
Right,
Everything has
yeah,
gone up.
everything has gone up,
And I take this very seriously.
yeah.
And I'd like to ask you, can you tell me something in the last 2 years that you pay less for?
No, not really, but everything is
Well, I
going
just feel
up, but,
that you're attacking the taxes of
Right,
it,
right.
so I
And I
think
mean,
that's unfair.
I think what really got me was, I mean, I talked to my sister, because really, this is the first time I've ever owned a home. And of course, I've got a big lot, I've got a big home,
Mhm.
and my sister goes, "You've got to realize you're gonna be paying for this." And I'm like, I wish somebody would have told me
Yeah.
before I got into all that, you know. But, I mean, you know, otherwise, it's really good, but, you know, I do hear a lot, and, you know, you do see a lot, and it's like, and I sit back and I think, you know, the only way I'm gonna learn is to come here
Definitely.
and to question you guys,
Yeah.
because that's what you're here for, is for the
Definitely.
city to question you, you know.
Yes.
And if something doesn't please us, where can we go to gripe about it?
Yep.
Well, you guys are gonna be at the bottom of the pile, unfortunately,
Well,
you know, so.
yeah.
But, you know, and if I don't understand, I will be asking, okay?
Please do, yeah.
All righty.
Please do.
May I make a statement?
Yeah,
Don't listen to what one individual.
I don't
has to
hear,
say.
I make my own mind up. My father told me that a long time ago. You believe half of
can't-
what you read,
Yeah.
half of what you hear, make up your own mind.
You cannot believe what one individual
No.
has to say about the things that are going on with this city, that
Right.
they don't have the qualifications
Right,
that the people here do have.
right. That's why I'm
And so
bringing it
there's-
all to you.
Yeah, and
And I'm
they're,
gonna be bringing it to
they're
you.
mouthing off,
Yep.
saying,
You know.
because they wanna feel good.
Yeah,
Well, they're trying to make us look like we're stupid,
yeah,
and they don't have the qualifications to
yeah.
do
So-
this job.
Mr. Klein,
Yeah.
thank you for coming. and
Yeah, I will.
Anytime, and,
Sure.
all this.
And I will be back, because if I have a question, I'm gonna ask you. guys,
Definitely
okay?
do.
Where you
And thank you for being
All right.
respectful too of you. Very nice, thank you, Mr. Klein.
Yep.
All right. Anyone else? Seeing there is none, we will close that portion of the meeting and move on to the consent agenda. And these are, the items that can be enacted with one motion. And they are the city council minutes from August 19th of 2019, a liquor license renewal for Mi Tierra, and the approval of the claims register, which includes claims paid under the current purchase policy. Are there any of these that need to be pulled out? Seeing there is none, is there a motion? Lieber with the first and Spear with the second.
McNeil?
Yes.
Cummins?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Lieber?
Yes.
All right, so now on to old business, which is the first one is a discussion regarding the submittal of a petition to create a utility board for the electric and gas departments. Right?
Yeah, this doesn't call for a motion, it's just basically to acknowledge the receipt of the petition. According to the auditor, it only needed 35 signatures, and it's gone well beyond that. As I understand it, at the next council meeting, we'll have a resolution. I've seen a draft of it, which the council can use to formally place this question on the November ballot as a voted issue. And again, it would take effect on July 1, 2020. it would have a utility board of 5 trustees, and they would be in charge of the electric and gas departments. According to the process, the city attorney stated, there is a period of 5 working days in which people can make objections, and I described those at the last meeting. They would be more technical in nature than anything to do with the substance of what would be voted on. Those 5 working days end Friday. So after that point, if nothing comes in, there's no need for the objection review committee. Then at your next meeting on the 16th, we'll have the resolution that uses the language in the petition, and that would be voted on, and if the petition is found to be valid, and it appears to be, we would then send it to the auditor for her to prepare it for the upcoming election. That's basically all we've got. I just wanted to acknowledge that this has been received and there's more to come.
I guess, Brian, I'm interested in knowing how the whole proposal will be worked out. You know, I have a lot of questions with this. How will the public not have questions?
Yeah, and I think there have been a lot of assumptions
Right.
that are based on perceptions that what people think ought to be in their own mind.
Mm-hmm.
They're playing it out in their own mind that there'll be a minimal cost to separating these, that transfers will end or be severely restricted, that out-of-town subdivisions will be no more. Maybe the fees or the cost of these will go down. Those really are based on assumptions,
Right.
and we don't know that. The other thing is, we don't know, if it passes, we don't know who this utility board will be manned by. You know, those, you don't know what a board's gonna decide until the board is there.
But who decides who the board is?
Well, if this vote passes, there would be 6-year terms. Members would be nominated, staggered terms. The mayor would nominate members, and the council would confirm.
And are they paid positions?
Well, when, in the cases where I've worked with utility boards, yes. For example, when I was in my previous town, council members at that point made $50 a meeting. The utility board voted that it too should make $50 a meeting to match what council members are paid. But, there are assumptions about the billing system. Nothing will change. My role in what the gas and electric utilities do would change.
So you wouldn't oversee
Oh, no.
this board?
No, I wouldn't think so, because, it's the saying about you can't answer to 2 masters. I can't
Right.
work for the council and work for a utility board, and then when one might disagree with the other, who do I answer to? I
Right.
answer to the council.
Right.
So what you're saying is there's a possibility to be another utility manager.
Well, that's what I've seen, or if there isn't, the alternative is the current department heads would be basically the managers who then report to the board. But, on the assumption about that out-of-town subdivision, in this case, the same person who recommended doing that project to the council, if we had had a utility board back then, would be making the same recommendation to a utility board. And I don't see why they would necessarily say no. They might have sorted it out the same way the council did. When it comes to transfers, towns do transfers. You know, when the state is looking at ways of limiting property tax revenue, it helps to have these alternatives because, you know, the cost of government goes up, but so does the desire for services that people want.
Well, I guess I just feel that, you know, before it goes to an election, people should know the answers to those things.
Well, you know, and we have to be, you know, as city employees in particular, we have to be careful because if like in my case, if I am paid with public money, so I can't use my position to go out and advocate for one side versus the other. We can't place ads using public money that advocates for one thing over the other. You can ask me questions like you are right now, and I can answer them. You can advocate for where you think this ought to go. I mean, you have the ability to write letters to the paper or make statements that could be quoted here. You can do that as public officials. But, yeah, I guess I am concerned about some of the assumptions I've heard about what's automatically going to happen if there's a utility board.
Right.
But getting back to transfers, whether to transfer or not is a budgeting philosophy. You don't need an independent board to change a budgeting philosophy. The council can change it at any time.
Ms. Swan has one question. Mary Swan?
No, it's not a question,
Oh.
it's a comment.
Okay.
If you all haven't read the current issue of The Conservative today, Carol Last, who has done a lot of research on this, probably more than anyone, has an excellent letter in the paper. Right, Stuart? Explaining how it works and listing a lot of the towns in Iowa that have utility boards. And he just lists a few, and there's a great many that do. And towns that I have lived in that always had utility boards, and they're absolutely excellent.
I've worked, you know, I've done this kind of work for almost 28 years. In my first town, there was an independent utility board. And in my second town, Macokota, there was an independent utility board for electric. They were already there when I started in each. So I don't know the exact reasoning on why in those particular cases. Here, it seems to come down to two things: the transfers and the out-of-town subdivision, which a utility board might have made the same decision. So I mean, I guess it's really, you know, if you have a point of view, I mean, I think you ought to make it clear if you're for it or against it.
Wouldn't it make decisions a lot slower and slow down the process, adding another layer of bureaucracy?
Well, it could, you know, what, right now, I suppose the question is, aside from the philosophy about transfers and the philosophy of serving an out-of-town subdivision, what is the council doing wrong? I mean, you've done the alley project downtown. You're
Rehab the power plant.
you know, you're trying to get more capacity credit revenue. You're fixing cracks in the building. You added a new person to the staff. So, you know, if the public is gonna look at this, I suppose they should see, you know, where has the council failed to do its job running the gas and electric utilities?
It also goes, like you said, with one of the assumptions, to me, the biggest question, I did read the letter, by the way, today, and there were still some unopened, answers, I felt, like, one said that, the board would be paid just a nominal fee, you know, small fee, but that also is an assumption, we don't know. But then, the biggest thing to me is, and I don't know how I feel about it yet, I guess, I'll be honest with you, I hear it, and of course, my first thought is, that's gonna be more money. I'll be honest with you, that was my first thought when I heard, you know, why would we add another board? I also felt like, gosh, you know, that's gonna just cost more money in the long run, and people maybe aren't seeing it that way. But the biggest thing, like you mentioned, is we don't even know who would be on this board, and how do we even know that they would make a different decision, or give us a different outcome? We don't even know that.
And if
So that's
the mayor has
iffy too.
the authority to appoint and the council confirms it, what would we be really changing a lot?
Right, that's what I questioned too.
And I agree, I believe it's gotta cost more, we're including more people.
I personally drove to a city who has a utility board to ask questions that I put in the paper. I have questions, and I still have a few questions. The main one was, how do they get paid? And they take money from that utility. If it's an electric utility, or if it's a gas utility, or if it's both. They take that money off the top first. They get paid first. No matter what the utility needs, the board gets paid first.
But it's,
That just doesn't fit in my way of thinking. Then they are appointed by the mayor, but they have to be affirmed by the city council. So what's the difference? The mayor doesn't appoint us, the city people elected us. A majority rules, and that's my question. How long has it been since the minority rules? The majority of the votes that a person receives when they're on an election is the one that gets the job. And the same thing works with a utility board. If you have 5 people on a utility board, it's 3-2. That's a majority. That's the way it's ruled. But those 3 people not necessarily make the best decision for that entity. And the personality comes into play more so than reality.
My thoughts are kind of along those same lines too, is that Tipton right now has a utility board. It gets elected every 4 years.
Yeah.
And this would take that accountability away from the people that we serve. Because it'd be 6 years appointed. I'm sure there would be ways to be removed from office, but it would not be as simple as voting them out within 4 years.
I can't see where I can't see that the majority of the people would, when they have all the facts, would vote for a utility board. That limits our gas department, it limits our electric department. My personal opinion is that we have the head of the electric department right now is the best we've had since Don Rosno's been here. Was here years ago. The gas department's the best one we've had since Pete Flinkhammer retired. Virgil knows his business, in and out, backwards and forwards. And those 2 men, the decisions they make are the ones that we have okayed as a council for them to do. They don't go out and buy something until they come and ask us for it. And when we see the need, we try to meet that need. That's just what we're here to do. So what's the use of having another appointed board to tell us that we're not doing our job right?
If I could add one more thing. Recently, I forwarded to the mayor and council as information an email that I received where the city of Indianola was doing a survey of a number of cities. The question was, and these were for cities that had privately owned, non-municipal gas, electric, and other things, asking what percentage their franchise fee was. Some were 3, one was 2, but a typical number was 5% for both gas, gross on the gas revenue, gross on the electric utility revenue. Well, in the budget year before the one we're in right now, we were at 6.5%. A lot of them are 5, we were at 6.5. In the current budget year, we were 7%. Now, is the difference between 6.5 and 5 and 7.5 and 5, is that really so significant that you change the system?
Sounds like we'll find out.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for your discussion and your comments. Next up is discussion of possible action concerning the replacement of 4 compressors for VFDs to accommodate the desert air units. And Joel is here from HBK.
Good evening.
Hi.
Evening.
I come back again. I want to have progress at the pool has been amazing. The roof we inspected it. I just want a little, if you don't mind jumping.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Update.
Yeah.
Got the roof inspected last week. They did a fantastic job. Firestone gave it a high star of the work they did. It was a tough job. While we had the roof off, we did a lot of other inspections to make sure the decking and things were okay, basically. The roof was just improperly placed to begin with. But the guys did a great job. We've sealed up a lot of leaks, a lot of holes, re-insulated the roof. The building's gonna be a lot more sustainable. And what we're talking about tonight is the existing units on the roof. There's 2 15-tons and 2 9-ton compressors, and basically that's what takes the hot liquid and cools it, makes it cool liquid and cool the building, and vice versa to heat the building. Virgil has done an unbelievable job maintaining those for the last few years, but there's no more Band-Aids to put on the compressors is the bad part. And now that we've added the new desert airs on the equipment, they will not warranty the new equipment we put on unless we replace the compressors. And the VFDs are variable frequency drives. Those are motors, electronic box that basically runs the motors in those rooftop units is what it is. It's all electronic, and they're expensive, and that'll help us tie into the new computer system also. But the estimate that the sheets gave us, we worked diligently to try to get this to you in time to take a look at it. Because of the time frame, it takes 4 weeks to get these compressors. You just can't go to places and buy them. Sadly, can't do it. And the budget, the numbers that Brian had shared with you, the compressors were around $60,000, and they had another line item in there for about $6,000–7,000 for dehumidifiers, temporary dehumidifiers. My personal opinion, now that this weather's turned fantastic now and our dew points have dropped down to the 50s, I think that's something we definitely would look at, and only need to do that in case it turns hot and humid again. But Adam can contest, it's been really nice in the area in the pool lately. We've been able to open the doors and keep that dollars down. So that's something we could look at and go back to sheets and go, do we really need that amount? My recommendation is that the council does approve this. So we can get things up in 4 weeks. We need to get things keep the pool warm. That'll be the first of October, about 4 weeks out, so we start getting into that cooler weather to be able to heat the building. We have had some changes, other changes in the project, you know, about the exterior and interior caulk, it's the same thing, it wasn't done. You guys inherited a lot of issues that you are taking firm action on. I applaud that to you. But we did make some changes. We were able to save all the coping on the building, which is about $3,500 instead of replacing it. There was no need to replace it. It was in very good shape. We had a ladder going over the ductwork because it's something that they require. We actually were able to raise the duct up, and an Adam can go and hit that duct. It works perfect, and we're able to save another $3,000 or $4,000 there also. So we are constantly looking at things, the way to save value and to save cost on this project for you. And my recommendation would be to approve these EFDs so we get things done. And I wanted to, Pam last time when I was here asked about addressing the cracks in the building. We have got a hold of the contractor out of Hills. He's planning to be up here in the next 20 to 30 days. He's 200 jobs behind. But we are gonna at least get an estimate to take a look at it. It's not failing. It doesn't need to be done immediately, but at least we can get that cost to you so you can take a look at it. So, I have to answer any questions.
Thank you. I've heard good comments
It looks great.
on the work that's been done.
It looks really good. It really, the tiger on, whoever, that mural lad, whoever's doing that work is
Yeah, our high school art teacher.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It's, the pictures are gone. HPK is 450 employees, and every employee at HPK has seen that picture. We get a lot of comments.
Sure.
It's pretty cool.
Melissa, do you want to go into the funding?
Yes, so we have been keeping track, we received the settlement funds. So with that, we'll use all the settlement funds with the engineering and then with, the majority of the cost. The excess funds that we, knew about a while ago were gonna come from Lost, and we were able to use that from Lost. So with all of that calculated up to the 77,000 included, we'll have that coming out of Lost funds. That's gonna leave about 31,000 left in our Lost funding. That's also taking into account other things that we're keeping in that pot for the Highway 38 funding expenses. We're holding a portion of that. And then we did the aquatic center parking lot up there, so that was able to come out of Lost as well. But we'll be able to fund it, but it's taking.
The amount that we earmarked out of that lost fund, and that was an existing fund, for the 38 project was 200,000. Now, that's not gonna, if we don't get the build grant, the 200,000 is gonna help, but it's not gonna cover everything that the city needs to have covered. But although it's earmarked now, if you need it, it can be used, it's available. We're just trying to keep it for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you much. So is there a motion one way or the other regarding these 4 compressors? Anderson with the first,
Second.
and McNeil with the second.
Cummins?
Yes.
Anderson? Spear?
Yes.
Lieber?
Yes.
McNeil?
All right, number 3, the discussion and possible action approving the extra caulking at the aquatic center. Adam?
You guys already approved this as a sort of spur of the moment. The contractors, Melbourne, and she's got together and brought Bob Byrne up there to take a look at the actually east and west end of the facility to recaulk that, and then even walk through the locker rooms. That's actually already done. Looks great.
All right.
Hey, do you want to mention while you're here, the electrical panel?
No.
Oh, not really.
No.
I'll wait till the next meeting, but we have 2 bids for the new fire alarm panel.
Yeah, I'm sorry, fire alarm.
Oh, okay, let's do that, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That sounds slightly less expensive than
It's a lot less. Yeah.
Ah,
It's around 1,900.
okay.
Oh, yes.
All right. Any other questions for Adam? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Spear was first,
Second.
and Cummings was second.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Leeper?
Yes.
McNeil? Cummins?
Thank you. All right, thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Adam.
Number one, discussion of possible action concerning the storm sewer analysis by Jack Pope, and he is here this evening as well.
I assume you have the letter in your packet, the little letter report I prepared, as well as a little map.
Yes.
I guess I'm going to answer any questions about that. We'll give you a little background on how we got to that point. Analysis of the storm drainage to football field area, it's around 105 acres of drains to that location. When we look at stormwater, we kind of take two approaches and approved by industry standard, I guess. Look at a 5-year storm, which is what typical stormwater systems are designed for, to handle a 5-year storm, what we call a minor storm. And then account for the 100-year storm, where it's gonna go when you get that 100-year storm, which usually inundates the streets and flows down low areas and overtops intakes, those kind of things. When we looked at this system, it was quite obvious that the 5-year storm exceeds what's currently existing out there for the existing storm sewer system. So it is obviously going other places. So then what I did is look back and said, okay, what are the pipes that are existing out there now? And based on that map, there's a 30-inch that goes across the park entrance road and 30-inch across the football field down to the highway. Into the north side of the entrance road, there is a 42-inch and a 24-inch pipe that dump into those two locations. The capacity of those two pipes far exceeds what the capacity of a 30-inch that goes onto the south. That being said, there's two components to the capacity of the pipe, not only the size, but also the slope of the pipe. Obviously, the more slope we have, the more carrying capacity it has. 42-inch is fairly steep and has a pretty good carrying capacity. The 30-inch flattens out there. My understanding is talking with Steve, getting kind of an idea of what's going on, is it typically comes out of the area intake that is just north of the football field. So what I'm looking at is the school's proposing a 36-inch through there underneath the football field. If the current 30-inch that goes north from allocation to the north side of the park is left in place, then that 36-inch has capacity for cover or carry a 5-year storm event. If that's decided to be updated at this point or upsized to a larger pipe, then obviously then downstream of that we want to try to match that carrying capacity. To extend that time, one of the proposal was to lay that 30-inch in place, and at this point get a easement for any future improvement to put a pipe around what would be the east side of the stadium that would eventually tie back into the two culverts going underneath the highway. In addition to that, I also propose or think the city should look at possibly using the area north of the entrance road as a detention basin. We'd have to do an analysis of that, see how much we could actually store in that area based on the elevations there and upstream to make sure we're not backing up into any properties, causing damage that way. And then any future development that goes anywhere north of this basin should be considered, detention should seriously be considered in those areas, I guess. So that's kind of my little rundown. I know it's a lot of data to digest.
We also have two reps from the school system too, so if you guys come with any questions too that you want to ask, by all means, please do.
I don't have any question right now.
I don't at this point.
Is your recommendation of that detention basin based on the introduction of the new field?
Well, no, not necessarily. That's that's additional protection for anything. If we're using the area as detention, you can delay any further improvements downstream of that. If you don't do that, then sooner than later you're going to have to replace that 30-inch pipe as well as get something downstream of that as well. But if you can detain some stormwater there, you know, you're gonna inundate the softball field there a little bit and like green space. But it's typically like a 24-hour period that water's back out of there.
Okay, I need it simplified for myself.
Now, is it your understanding that if the 36-inch, the 30 under the football field was replaced with a 36-inch, would that be adequate?
Well, again, for a 5-year storm, yes, it's gonna be adequate for a 5-year storm in the current conditions. A 100-year storm is going to, that will not be large enough to carry a 100-year storm event. It's going to, the water is gonna either, we've designed several systems like this field, and typically when the rain event falls, a heavy rain event in that field, when you'll get water standing, but it drains right away. And the beauty of it is you can play on it within hours of even getting flooded. But yeah, no, it'll carry what we call a minor storm. It's designed for a 5-year storm event. And so to that event, it would carry the capacity, that capacity. Anything above that is going to build up in the storm sewer system eventually. You know, it basically either go across the field or it's going to go around the field based on the existing contours of it.
And I think you said outside of the report that water that, or rain that falls on the field, the turf, new turf itself, would be fine. I mean, it might fall through faster than it does through the ground now, but the 36-inch will handle that.
Yeah. Yep. And I've actually talked to Shot Battery today. What they're going to, their connection points will be at the bottom end of the football field, so that'll protect that as well. So, but yeah, if there's a 100-year storm event, that pipe won't have the carrying capacity for that.
Do you have like numbers related to the 5-year event, 10-year event, 100-year event?
I do. So based on that drainage area that's coming to that point, a 5-year storm is like 120 CFS. A 100-year storm is, CFS is cubic feet per second. A 100-year storm to that location would be 349 CFS. The 36-inch as designed, based on the information I got, would have a carrying capacity of just over 50 CFS, okay? So that doesn't even equal half of what the 5-year event is there. But, like I said, there's a 30-inch piece in there that kind of acts as a buffer right now that has a carrying capacity of 40 CFS. So, until that's upsized, nothing downstream needs to be larger than that.
Do you know what that relates to and the amount of rainfall? Or am I asking?
Well, stormwater's not gray, it's gray, it's not black and white. What we do, it's all based on what we call time and concentration. Not every storm is identical, of course. And the further you get down from the drainage way, the longer the time and concentration. So at the upper end, a 100-year storm event may be 7 inches per hour. As we extend down, it may be 3 or 4 inches per hour.
Okay. Okay.
So my question is, if there's a 30-inch under the field now,
Correct.
and if we want to expand it to a 36-inch, does that mean the city will incur the cost after that 36 is in to expand the other side?
I'm not sure that's my place to tell you who's
Well,
going to pay for it.
okay, but it would have to be, whoever
I
pays for
would
it.
think so.
So, yeah, that wouldn't be something I would.
Well,
So,
it may be, I mean, you probably look at the detention area first, but you may, there may come a day where there's little choice. That's why the easement, having an easement there would be useful.
Correct.
And what would that do for the city? It would
Gives
put
you
the,
it would give you the ability
deeper.
the existence of the easement means that if you reach that point in time where you need more capacity, it's in place, you can do your project. You don't have to go through whatever administrative setup or further hoops. You you would have the ability to act. But how wide would such a easement need to be?
Typically, the storm sewer's not very deep. I mean, we're talking, it's gonna be, 5 to 6 foot deep probably. So a 20-foot permanent easement would be more than enough to do that work. Now you may need a temporary easement to allow for moving a pipe, moving material back and forth, but 20-foot easement would be, typically that's what I've seen done in the past, is get a 20-foot feature easement for utility accommodation. Similar to like a subdivision, if you're doing down lot lines or something, you get maybe 5 or 10 foot each side of that. A lot line is for a future potential easement location. That's what I would suggest here.
Yeah.
So this wouldn't have to be done right out the gate?
Construction?
On the south end of?
Correct.
Oh.
No,
No, it wouldn't.
It just would create the path to do it.
Okay. That helps.
Why can't all this water go around to the east, rather than dig up right down the middle of the field and replace that with something that's barely big enough?
Well, I would, first of all, I'll justify my answer by saying that pipe that's underneath there, I don't know how old it is, but what we've typically seen in these cases is that pipe probably is a sealed solid. The joints are probably loose. I would think as to protect your investment in your field, you'd want a better pipe to put through there so you don't have loose joints. And then that being said, so you eliminate that entirely. Can it go around? Yes, and you'd have to put a larger pipe in though, because I think you're gonna flatten out. It's gonna be a flatter pipe. So it's not gonna have the carrying capacity that you would have with what you've got designed right now. And I overheard you guys talking earlier about being in a low spot. I think every football field I've ever been involved with, it goes through a drainage way, it seems like. And there's utilities underneath it, so.
And while we're making a mess, is there any reason not to go bigger than 36?
Well, one thing you run into, I don't think you'll have enough cover over the pipe, based on the elevations I saw. I haven't worked out the exact details, because we didn't do the topo, but it looks like if you go much larger than that, you're not gonna be able to get cover over the pipe and get your field built. So you have to put either dual pipes in or change it to you do elliptical pipe, which is, it's squatter and wider.
And more expensive.
Yeah, exactly. It costs more to build that kind of pipe, yeah. And I guess, what do you guys experience out there as far as the existing conditions now, as far as heavy rain events? Is the water wash across the field? Does it kind of go around?
It came across the field a little bit in the one rain event this spring, and it did it as well last fall. Typically what I see is that 42 and that 24 overflow that box on the north side of the Park Road.
Yep.
And eventually that area fills up, and then water actually runs over Park Road if we get enough rainfall.
And that's what I propose to do, is we actually put a dike in that area, because the road is kind of a low spot there. You build that up a little bit to store water behind it, and that protect it a little bit more.
If the north side of that road would hold more water, and we did upsize to a 36-inch pipe, I think we would be in a lot better condition than what we are right now. But that's.
In a big event, you're still gonna have issues. I mean, that's kind of what I discovered with our numbers, so.
Jack, you could use soil from the ball field to build the road up. You're going down with one and up with the other.
Oh, yeah.
So just so the, I don't know, rattling in my head, in order for everything to work smoothly from the Park Road all the way further south, the city's then property would need to be upsized to past the football field area.
North of the football field?
No, south, like heading under.
Well, right now, the proposal was that pipe was going to be replaced from just north of the football track area to the road, I guess.
So nothing underneath that road would have to be.
No, it was a dual culvert underneath there, and my understanding is the water's not inundated that road, so I'm understanding that's handling that so far. Again, you start increasing stuff upstream, a lot more water to go through, you gotta analyze what's going on downstream, so.
Okay.
somewhat related, is when the city conveyed the football field property to the school back in the 2000s, the city didn't retain any easements for the storm line under the football field or the storm line that's on the west side of the property. So I guess the city probably assumed that they were ours, but maybe not. And to avoid a shared liability, I had talked to the school board about the possibility of treating the project as you would with a developer. And that is, they would convey an easement to the city for what goes in and what's already there. And the council would accept it as part of the city's storm system. Then there's no confusion over whose it is. You know, as I mentioned to the school board, they don't, you guys don't want to do stormwater. That's a city function. If the council will accept it, if it's built to a standard that we can accept, that's something that still has to be worked out, but it's something that we really want to do.
Any other questions or comments? Any other things for Jack?
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pope. All right, so then what action would you be looking for, Brian?
Well, in this case, I don't know that we need a motion.
Sounds good. I don't know if we needed one to file this report. Yeah. All right. So we'll move on to number 2, which is discussion of possible action concerning pay app number 4, in the amount of $218,000, $438.80 to Sheets Construction for the James Kennedy Family Aquatic Center. Other than it's a pay application
And it was recommended that we pay it by the engineer.
All right. Is there if there is no discussion on it, is there a motion? Spear with the first, McNeil with the second.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear.
Yes.
All right, next one, which is discussion of possible action concerning the EICA to write a CDBG water sewer grant application not to exceed $2,000. Brian?
This, we talked about this recently. I mentioned that the CDBG for housing rehab didn't pass, but the next one that could come up to bat would be in the same track 2 area, could be a water sewer project with the water main at North Avenue being replaced, and then a number of sanitary sewer system problems that were identified by McClure's study. Those 2 would be repaired or replaced. Together, they well, I have more on that later, but the cost of ECIA to write the grant then, to do that, is $2,000, so I thought I have the time to bring it to the council, so that's what I did.
All right. Any questions for Brian? Is there a motion? Anderson with the first, and Lieber with the second.
McNeil,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper.
Yes.
All right. Number 4, discussion of possible action to approve a trip reimbursement for Mike Cook. Linda?
Hello.
Hello.
Well, Mike Cook, applied for the trip application, and he since has gotten all the doors on his 10 units. The total project cost was $6,030 and some change. The commission met And he met all his requirements of paid bills, and so the commission recommends the payment of $3,015.43 to Mike. And I did go down and take photos.
Yeah.
All the doors are replaced, it looks very nice, and just another improvement in our community.
All right. Any questions for Linda? Seeing there's none, is there a motion?
So moved. Second?
Lieber with first and Spear with second.
Cummins?
Yep.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Lieber?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
All right, so the next one, number 5, discussion and possible action concerning Snaggy Ridge 105.
Yes, so the chamber is planning the gravel bike race again on October 5th. And one thing that they changed this year, and I did talk to Adam already, is to have the start and end of the race at the city park. Just because we don't want to upset business owners by taking parking places and just keeping things a little more contained. And so the bike race, we would start setting up registration around 6:30 in the morning. The race begins at 9 and would end probably around 8 o'clock that night. I've talked to Adam about making sure that bathrooms, we have 2 separate little houses, I don't know, for lack of a word I can't find, there that bathrooms could be used. We'll have food up there for the bikers. The Lions Club has said that they will block the street so they can get out to the gravel road safely. We'll have 2 checkpoints. And it is a small fundraiser for the chamber. And so I just am asking if the council will approve that, yes, the bike race can start and end at the city park this year.
Did you get some better weather this year?
Oh,
Geez, last year was terrible. I put in the order, I don't know.
Okay, okay.
All right, is there a motion?
Motion for.
Anderson with first
Second.
and Spear with second.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Lieber?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
Cummins?
Yes.
All right, the next one, discussion and possible action concerning the Cedar County Historical Society Parade.
I like to be courteous to our mayor and city council. And so the Historical Society, Pat Bargloff, had gotten a hold of me that they want to have a parade on September 21st. And I think to be courteous is to let you know that there will be a parade on the streets. And she did have what streets they would be going down. It won't be a very big parade, but I just feel that it's important that our city council knows. I did already speak to Lisa Keffert about this, and she doesn't have any concerns. The Historical Society also said that they would have volunteers blocking streets, so there's not a collision or something going on. So,
All right, sounds great. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Lieber with first,
Second.
Spear with second.
Spear?
Yes.
Lieber?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
Cummins?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Thanks,
Linda.
Linda.
All right, number 7, which is a resolution to assess nuisance abatement charge due to non-payment property owner. It's Melissa.
Yes, this winter, the city had to salt the sidewalks at the Tiger's Den. We've been unsuccessful in collecting the payment for that service, so this would allow me to apply the $30 charge to his property tax.
All right. Any questions? If there are none,
So moved.
Spear with
Second.
first and Cummins with second.
Lieber?
Yes.
Come
McNeil?
on.
Cummins? Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
All right, number 8, which is a resolution setting the public hearing for the CDBG application.
Yeah, this is a chance to apply for a grant toward work that we know has to be done sometime. Part of the application is for the water main on North Avenue, which has been subject to a number of breaks. The other one is again for repairs that were identified in McClure's study. That one is for $419,000. The total of the two is $826,000. Now, we also applied for the same water main in the build grant. So we have 2 chances there. If the build grant came through, it probably would be better to use it. And again, North Avenue is being looked at as a detour for the 38 project. And so we wanted to emphasize the need to, in these grant applications, to have that current water main removed and then the new one relocated. The maximum award is 600,000. That doesn't mean that of that 826 we would get the whole 600, but that's the maximum award. The public hearing would be at your next council meeting. I'm guessing that Mark Snyder will be here again to go through a number of things that the block grant rules require to be covered. And so this, after setting the public hearing, it'll appear in the newspaper.
All right, any questions from Brett? Is there a motion? McNeil with the first. And Lieber with the second.
McNeil,
Yes.
Cummins, Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Lieber,
Yes.
All right, then on to number 9, which is discussion and possible action concerning a one-time water and sewer exemption at 215 East 12th.